What's going on, guys? All Buzzle here, back at it again with another video, and today we have my top 10 decks in Standard for February 2023. These will be my top picks for OCIC, Knoxville, any upcoming Standard tournaments. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. I make daily Pokemon TCG content, and now without further ado, let's get into the list. Kicking off our list, at number 10, we have Eternatus Weezing. If you watch any of my videos, you know I've badmouthed this deck quite a bit, and it would be very low on my list if I were bringing it to an event. It does have some results next to its name. Weezing is one of the most annoying cards in format. That neutralizing gas is pretty disruptive against Lost Box and Lugia. It doesn't apply a whole lot of pressure, which is my biggest knock on the card. Eternatus is a solid backup attacker. Being able to do 270 for 2 energies does give you some sort of a backup plan. Like I said earlier, I would never personally play this deck. I think it's not very good, and I think there are a lot better picks. But it is definitely an annoying deck, and it has, Weezing has some merit, but it would be pretty far on my list of decks I would play or bring to a tournament. Number 9 on our list is Arceus Duraludon. This is the same list that I showed on Saturday. Arceus Duraludon is not a particularly overwhelming archetype. It's just biggest strength is that 2/3/3 prize map being very bulky. You have to take multiple hits, sometimes even 3 or 4 with those hyper potions, and just trying to outbulk your opponent and doing that 220 a turn. Hopefully it's just enough to get over the line. We have Lost Seed, hopefully Lost Zone, some of those annoying like one prizers like Rayquaza. We have the Parasols for little extra sustainability into that. Yveltal, hopefully deny amazing destruction. We have the double Raihan, so even if we don't get 2 Trinity Novas, or only don't get a Trinity Nova, we only get a Trinity Charge, we still can load up that second Duraludon, have that Mustard in case we miss that turn 1 Duraludon V, we still can get the V Max down turn 2. This is another deck that is definitely not my favorite deck to play, but I do think it has some merit. It's very easy to play, and it might actually be sort of the right time for this deck, because I think, at least for OCIC, Lugia, like, the knee-jerk reaction to, oh, Lugia did super well, is Paralysis and Ability Lock. So I think Lugia might be prioritizing heavier on, like, Bird Keeper and Canceling Cologne, instead of, like, the double Lost Vacuum that you saw on a couple of the top 8 lists. So it might be time for Duraludon to come back out. I think Paralysis and Duraludon are definitely, would definitely be on my radar for decks I would play for OCIC if I were to attend the event. If you want me a more in-depth video, check out my Arceus Duraludon video. It'll be on my Crown Zenith playlist. I've featured most of these decks, so yeah, definitely check out that Crown Zenith playlist if you missed any of them out. So yeah, not a lot to add to Arceus Duraludon. Pretty basic deck, but it's still a powerful one nonetheless. Number 8 on our list is Vikavolt. I'm very torn on what sort of direction I want to go with Vikavolt, or what direction I think the deck should go. This is my list I featured in a video last weekend. I do think Aerodactyl is probably going to go up in popularity for OCIC, at least with people realizing that, oh, Cologne was only in 1 or 2 of the top 8 lists. People will net deck those and not play Cologne. So I feel like the Lugia players who are ahead of the curve will play Cologne, and then your Aerodactyl package is useless. So I'm trying to be ahead of the counter, I guess you could say, by playing no Aerodactyl. I'm going for that Dragonite. It's a pretty solid attacker into that Goodra matchup, which can be sort of tough without it. And also just give you a pretty solid one-shot attacker, or just it gives you much higher damage baseline than like Super Zap Cannon. Like I said, I featured this deck last week. I definitely think this deck is probably the best disruption deck in format. I would play this over Weezing any day of the week. That Paralyzing Bolt item lock can sometimes just win you unwinnable matchups or poor matchups, just because item lock can just be super devastating sometimes. So I do think Vikavolt could be a lot higher on this list. I'm just sort of skeptical on how good the Aerodactyl package is right now. It's in such an odd spot, because it's always best when no one expects it and does not attack for it. I feel like last meta might have been, like, last regional might have been the window for it. I don't know if the window's closed or it's still open. I really don't know, and it's gonna take. I feel like whoever guesses it right could have a deep run this weekend. But it generally has me pretty pretty spooked. So I don't know if this is the right direction, or you should go Aerodactyl, or even on other archetypes such as Mew, which we'll get into later, if Aerodactyl is the right direction to go. But nonetheless, equal, it's a very strong deck. Item lock, as long as it's been basically in standard format or any format, it's always been strong. So number 8 on our list is Vikavolt. On to number 7, we have Palkia. This might be the deck I am most disrespecting. This is the same list that Ian Robb used to bubble out of top 8 of the Orlando Regional Championships. I feel like Palkia's in a really strong spot right now. You don't have the best Lost Box matchup in the world. I'm very sus about Ice-Q Wash right now. I have a feeling that a lot of the Lost Box lists, especially the Lost Box Kyogre, will be playing Temple of Sinnoh, especially after the Wash energy even pops up in Lugia. So I'd be very skeptical of just like saying Ice-Q Wash wins me Lost Box. I wouldn't bank on it. But your Lugia matchup is pretty cool with the paralysis. We have that Drapion for Mew. So on paper, you have solid matchups into just about everything. It's just whether the attacks come out. And I feel like sort of the window for Palkia was last event, and I have a feeling Lugia will be playing Bird Keeper. Lost Box will be ready for Ice-Q. Palkia's, it's sort of like, Palkia was once BDIF, and now it's sort of like anti-meta to where like it has to, like, Palkia isn't necessarily the feature in every matchup now. Like Articuno is like the standout into Lugia, Carbomidol into Duraludon, Ice-Q into Lost Box. It's more of like a Palkia box style deck where you have that Palkia as that beat stick attacker, but you also have options for all your other matchups, and of course you have that Inteleon line for that consistency. This is another deck that I just don't know. This could be way too high, could be too low. Like my last video, top 10 video in January, I completely omitted Palkia entirely, and I just this deck, like sort of like counter box decks like this, timing the meta is key, and I don't know if the time is the time for Palkia right now, but it definitely could be. And any future meta where you don't see Ice-Q hate, you don't see paralysis hate, you definitely could be the right time to play Palkia. On to number 6, and my personal favorite on the list, we have Control. I have 2 different Control lists. Both I've definitely tested pretty extensively. The first one here is Eldegoss Control. This is sort of based off Sanders' list, sort of based off the ones that popped up in Orlando. It's kind of like my own spin on both of those. I have a little more faith in the Flying Pikachu right now. I feel like Lost Box is probably going to be more concerned about Ice-Q than it would be Flying Pikachu. Like, I don't think, like, in terms of like Lost and Kyogre, is probably going to be playing Temple of Sinnoh over like a Lost Vacuum. So that Ice-Q, while that build does have the opportunity to go for multiple Ice-Qs, so one Temple of Sinnoh wouldn't necessarily do you in. Still, I do just want. I like having that sure thing that the Parasol Pikachu also just puts a lot more pressure on into that Reggie matchup. So yeah, I finally gave the Ghost on the Calyrex. Starly is just the one retreat, gives you so much more versatility early on to like Gormandise. I know the Bird Keeper Keen Eye thing is sort of niche, but it does occasionally be really strong. The 30 damage rarely matters, the HP rarely matters. Starly is just that little bit better. It's just a little more consistent of a card. I've done quite a few videos on this particular deck, so definitely check those out. I've done a matchup breakdown. I've done a uncut gameplay video. So if you want to learn more about this deck, definitely check those out. This probably would be the deck I would play if I were going to OCIC. This or our next control deck that we'll get to in just a moment. But yeah, I definitely think this deck it's definitely more, it has its eye on more of a narrow meta than the other control deck I will feature, but it's very strong into that particular spread. Like into Mew, you're pretty good. Into Palkia, you're pretty, not Palkia, Lugia, you're pretty good. And into Lost Box, you're pretty good. Also Reggie's, Arceus, Duraludon, Gudra. If you hit some bad RNG early and get like stuck at lower tables, you could have it be in for a bad day if you like start hitting some janky decks. But overall, I do think Flying Pikachu would be one of my top recommended decks going into this international championship. And the other control deck we're featuring is Ditto Control. I've done a couple videos on this one as well. I did an uncut gameplay video on Saturday. Only change I've made from that list since is I took out the Teddiursa for a Mawile. Mawile while the extra text can sometimes be a bit of a pain, its attack is the same thing as Teddiursa. It denies retreat, but also means you do 90 more damage to your opponent's active on the next turn, which can be a little annoying because you don't want to knock out your opponent's Pokemon. So, like, you don't, like, if you have to torment it or do another, like, mainly it's torment's the only attack that matters because everything else has 0 base damage. But if you have to torment that attacker that you try to retreat lock, you can accidentally knock it out sometimes. So that's why I was kind of skeptical on it originally, but getting to that turn 1 Gourmandize is just so powerful that I think, having that 1 retreat is going to win you more games than that 90 HP flavor text would lose you. So this deck is definitely more trying to cover a wider variety than the previous control deck, but also it's a little more inconsistent, not quite as firm into those into Lugia, but it definitely has the potential to win 3 games because you have more of an aggressive win condition with the Sandile. One of your go-to plays will be like Roxanne, Jinx, and then on the following turn just start spamming Sandile, Misfortune Sisters. So you do have a more aggressive win condition. It is possible to close out 3 games with this deck. Definitely better in best of 1, but it is not quite as strong into as many decks as the Eldegoss control deck, but definitely still a very powerful one. In my opinion, it is a little more fun to play. You have a lot of attackers that you can mess with, lots of different tricky supporters. Probably the card that is on the cusp of being cut is the Echoing Horn. I definitely would like. I definitely like that 4th Capture Energy, 3rd Gourmandize are definitely cards that I'm definitely going to be testing out soon. So, and I did have a request for a matchup breakdown with Ditto Control, so if that's something that you'd like to see for this deck or any of the other ones on this list, please let me know because I'm more than happy to make them. But yeah, this is probably the deck I would play for OCIC. I think not only is it very fun and I'm comfortable with it, I think it also has amongst the highest ceilings if you can play and draw well. And yeah, this is Ditto Control. On number 5, we have Regis. Regis is sort of one of the most polarizing decks in the format. Either you really love him or you hate him. But nonetheless, Regis is a pretty solid meta contender. Has been since it was printed in Astral Radiance. The deck's pretty basic. Not a whole lot you can put in there. It's a deck that the more you tech out, kind of the worse it feels. So I'm only playing 1 Serena. And I'm trying, like, I want to have the vacuum so I don't lose to like Control. I have a better time into like Parasol and stuff like that. I'm playing the Yelp one to try to have a time at a decent time in Goodra. Also, we have the Rope for Ice Cube. Like, I'm trying to do a lot with this list, which might be a bad take. Like, I could definitely see a more minimalist Regis being the call. I do think this is probably Regis is in a better spot than it was last tournament in Orlando because the winning list was not being Dunsparce, and I think those tax spaces might be going to higher priority cards such as Cologne and Birdkeeper. So this might be finally the time for Reggie to pop out again. I did a video on this Silver Tempest meta. This list is relatively similar to that one, but I do think I'm kind of like metagaming in my head, and I do feel like this is probably the best window Reggie has had in a long time. So this is definitely up there on my overall recommended picks for the event. Definitely not the safest pick ever, but if you're trying to go for that home run, take down the event, Regis could definitely get there for you. And on our 4th spot, we have Goodra V-Star. Goodra really had a strong showing at the Liverpool Regionals. Didn't have quite as strong of a showing at the Orlando Regional Championships. There was one in top 16, and I think there's one at like 17th or 18th place. Goodra just tries to get that rolling iron as quickly as possible. Just tries to be annoying tanky archetype. It's doing consistently 200 damage per turn. This list is playing the double Drapion because I do not want to lose to Mew. It's definitely one of Goodra's worst matchups. The 3 Temples is to try to have a reasonable game plan into Lugia. Other than that, nothing super special about this list. It is playing Choice Belt, which is kind of an interesting take. This I think is the 17th place list. Being able to do that 230 does make it so you can like tempo turn 2 into a Lugia. Like this is like over Zigzagoon. Or you can it's just like gonna be more reliable. It's not quite easy to search out, but it is going to always hit that one shot on opposing Pokemon Vs without having to spend excess nets. So I think it's an interesting take. I definitely could see you taking out both belts for like Zigzagoon and maybe another switching card or another Roxanne or something like that. But I do think this list is pretty solid. Probably close to the best you can do with Goodra. Not a whole lot you can do with Goodra. It's a pretty bland archetype. But I do think the double Drapion is probably correct because I don't want Mew's probably your worst matchup, and I don't want to take an L to Mew. At least if I want to go deep into an event, I don't think you can take an L to Mew. But yeah, Goodra, pretty standard archetype, not nothing too tricky. So yeah, that is Goodra. And now on to number 3, we have Mew VMAX. Mew was my number 2 deck on my previous top 10 video I made last month. I have dropped it down 1 spot. This is a list where I am making that stand with Aerodactyl. I'm still very torn on whether I want to be an Aerodactyl deck or not. This is similar to what Grant Hayes top 8 at Orlando with. I just took out the Poncho for a phone because he said after the event the Poncho is pretty useless. He also said Aerodactyl was pretty mediocre as well. So, as you might have saw in the top 8 set, he went second. So the Aerodactyl package was worthless. The first game he lost. Game 2 he got the Aerodactyl playoff and won. And then game 3, Isaiah got that turn 2 summoning stars. Not a whole lot you can do after that. So it's already sort of a sus matchup, even playing the Aerodactyl, and you're probably going to be seeing more clones now, or at least probably I would assume more clones. So I definitely could be taking Aerodactyl out of this list, and if you told me that you were taking Aerodactyl out, I wouldn't hate it. But I have him in there for now. Just I think it gives you the best chance into Lugia, but I don't honestly know. It's definitely going to be a meta call thing, and that's really going to be, I think, crucial for OCIC, and it's kind of like a mind game because everybody knows the most optimal 60s pretty much for all these lists. This meta is so optimized that it's just basically the mind game and guessing of, is this where everyone brings Cologne? Is this where people don't tech for Lugia? Is this where people are bringing Paralysis? Things like that are really going to really make or break your tournament. So I'm very torn on this Aerodactyl. Mew is one of my more favorite decks to play in Standard. I just enjoy it just feels good to play. Being able to draw so many cards, and it's also being able to disrupt your opponent's hand. You feel like you have so much control over the game. So I definitely am a big fan of Mew VMAX. And on to number 2, we have Rayquaza Lost Zone Box. Only one Lost Zone Box deck this video. I definitely think that if you wanted to play Lost Zone Kyogre, you could just try to find space for a Temple. This is Nicholas Moffat's top 4 list, except I took out the Ice-Cube Wash and put in the Raikou and a Grass Energy. You could also try to find a space in this list for Temple if you were very scared of Ice-Cube, which I definitely would like to find a space for it. Space in this list is just so tight. You could take out the double Manaphy, but I expect even more Cologne, so I don't want to cut Manaphy. And cut Zigzagoon, but that kind of is weird. Cut Balloon, that's kind of weird. I don't know. I just think that this is probably pretty optimal. And the Temple could be there, but are you going to face enough Ice-Cube? How many? I know you can't take too many L's to order to have a deep run in a tournament, but how many? You're probably not going to face enough Ice-Cubes for it to be more valuable than a consistency card. That's just me, but I do think this is the most powerful build of Lost Box, having that big one-shot attacker in Rayquaza, and also having that devastating one prizer that can take 2 prizes in those single prize matchups is also incredibly strong. That's another thing I do like about that double Manaphy is that even you don't have to spend rods in the mirror just to keep bringing back your Manaphy. And that's one thing that the Wash Energy does bring to the table, and one thing that you might want to keep it is because you can stick it on your Manaphy and deny that Lost Mine pressure. And this list plays no boss, so if you just stick it on your Manaphy, you're probably going to be safe and you will deny those multiple price turns. So definitely something to keep in mind. You could go that Ice-Cube Wash, or you could just cut a Grass for a wash. That'd be pretty sus, but it could be alright. So yeah, this is Raikou Lost Zone Box, in my opinion, the strongest build of Lost Zone Box. And at number 1 here, we have surprised to no one Lugia V-Star. Lugia V-Star has taken over the metagame, has been since it was printed in Solar Tempest. This list, I'm trying to do everything here. This might be the wrong take. I don't think it is. I'm trying to beat everything. And I'm sacking a little consistency, but I don't really care. I have the Bird Keeper, I have the Clone, I have the Vacuum, I have the V-Guard from Mirror. I'm trying to do everything. I have 3-3 Lugia, 3 captures, and I'm sure some of you are already screaming, play 4 Lugia, play 4 captures, but I want Cologne. I don't want to lose to Aerodactyl. I want Skyla so I can find my Cologne. And yes, Skyla is better than Irida because yes, Irida can find you that other Lumineon, and so you can find you can Skyla for boss, and I know you can Irida for Lumineon, and that's the same thing. But that's only works in a perfect world where you always have a venge spot, always that you that never passes down. You've never used both of your Lumineons. Skyla always finds you that boss no matter what. Irida is sometimes boss, ideally boss, and that other water Pokemon rarely matters. So I am Team Skyla, at least in terms of that. I'm playing the Wash Energy to stick on my Manaphy to stick it to Kyogre. So you definitely could cut down on some of the more techie cards like Wash Energy, like Cologne. But I just want to beat everything, and I know I'm lacking consistency, but I want to have a good time into every deck, and I feel like you are with this list. It's definitely the best deck in format, and if you were just like asking me, hey James, what do you want to play for points? I would say Lugia, and I mean the position I'm in, if I were going to an event, I would be going so few events. I have to take the tournament down to qualify for Worlds. I'd be playing a more swing or miss deck, like Control for example. But I do think Lugia, if you're just trying to get points, trying to get the top 16, top 32, it's definitely the safest pick. You're going to be facing a lot of mirrors, so you're definitely going to have to know that matchup well. But I do think it's probably the strongest play. The floor is so high, but the ceiling is still incredibly high as well. So if you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing and leaving a like on this video. If you have any disagreements or questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and this has been All Up Blitzon. I'll catch you in the next one.